Hi, this is Greg Bafidis, Chairman and Founder of the Posse List, and I'm here tonight at the Georgetown Law Center for the first day of Law Firm Evolution, Brave New World or Business as Usual, a conference being sponsored by the Georgetown Center for the Study of the Legal Profession. My guest this evening is Reena SenGupta, who is Managing Director of RSG Consulting. Based on this evening's, shall we call it, raucous debates, it seems to me that in general the UK market seems to be ahead of the US market as far as this concept of inertia, that the UK seems to get it, that the paradigm is changing. Would you agree with that?
I would, yes. I mean, the UK market has, there are a couple of factors that are making the UK market have to sit up and take notice. One of the key things is the Legal Services Act, and of course the credit crisis and the recession, which has accelerated a lot of firms in terms of their adoption of reducing headcount, reducing office space. As I was saying earlier, we did a brief kind of survey, well, kind of an informal survey where I went to see about 25 of the top firms in the UK last September, and most of them said they were reducing their office space. And examples like the Chancellor got 3 spare floors in that huge building in Canary Wharf. Ashurst, which has got 4 offices, was saying, a couple of years ago they were thinking they were busting at the seams. Now they're not. Now they're not going to be looking for bigger space. And in addition, a lot of the...
So they're looking for, when you say outsourcing it, so they're looking for any number of legal service providers, of which there are
they're just... No, actually, it's more about the fact that the demand for premium legal work, I think most of the top UK firms are realising that demand for premium legal work is going to reduce long term.
Okay.
So they are realising that they are probably, instead of having these double-digit growth, that they've had for the last sort of 10 years, that's not going to be the case anymore. They're going to be taking less people on. So the model in which they're working is going to change. Already lots of the UK law firms have changed the way they pay associates. It's gone from being a kind of lockstep model to being something that's more based on merit. They've revised things like graduate trainees, how they're looking in terms of how many trainees they bring on. They're looking at increasing IT investments, even though the firms have had to make redundancies in the recession. They've not cut down their investment in IT because they see that streamlining, processing the way in which they deliver their legal services is going to be crucial. So the whole package of unbundling legal services, I think most of the top firms have looked at. Most of them, just in our little surveys...
And it's moving faster than even in the States.
It's moving faster. A couple of years ago, none of the UK firms really looked at LPOs, as in legal process outsourcers, offshoring work. Now, probably 90% of them have looked at LPOs, been out to India, had people in. They've looked at it. They may not be doing it necessarily, but they've looked at it in a really, really serious way. And even a firm like Slaughter and May, which is probably one of the premium law firms of the globe.
And the largest? Would you say the largest UK firm? Or
No. It's more like a Wachtell Lipton in the States. The most profitable law firm in Europe, and even they have been asked by a client to sit down with a legal process outsourcer and look at what they can commoditize. And this is a firm that is wedded to the brainiac end of the profession. So, yeah, the UK market is developing a piece. We did a survey recently for Eversheds, which is going to be in the conference packs, and we were looking at the impact of the recession on the profession and whether this would be long term or not. And we interviewed 130 general counsel globally and about 80 law firm partners. And the majority of them all said it's the balance of power shifted to the client, and this is going to be a long term shift. And one of the key things that we're seeing, in this sense, the UK is a little bit behind the US, but in terms of the role of general counsel, the role of general counsel is evolving so fast and so rapidly. And so as your purchaser is becoming more sophisticated, has got a higher status in the business, has a different role and a different relationship with the executive, with the management committee, with the board, with the CEO. They're now more responsible for corporate governance. They're champions of ethics, post-credit crisis. They're going to be far more sophisticated as purchasers, much stronger.
You made an interesting comment regarding that, and let's talk about it, that there was a disconnect between the law firm and the client. Can you just reiterate what you said?
Yes, sure. But I'm saying that there is big change afoot, and We, as you may know, do this joint venture with the Financial Times on innovative lawyers, and last year we called our issue the change issue. This year we're calling it the collaboration issue. And part of it is because one of the ways we see lawyers change, one of the big changes we see in the market is the way in which lawyers are going to be working together and working with business. But having done the research for the last 4 years, one of the big things that we have noticed is this disconnect between lawyers and their clients. So we get submissions in and we do interviews, and it's a bit like we get a submission in detailing a legal innovation and it's got a client reference at the bottom, and we'll generally phone up the client referee and we'll say, do you think this piece of work is innovative? And then the client will generally say, no, not really, even though the law firm does.
Okay.
And this one example that I used was about the Hamburg ports. We got a submission from a Magic Circle firm, and it looked quite credible, bit dull, put it aside. It just sort of talked about how it had issued tracking stocks and 2 kinds of shares, and forgive me, I'm not a lawyer, but we looked at it and said, oh well, they've done a good IPO for Hamburg ports. But on this instance, we talked to the client says this is the most innovative firm ever. And the reason he said that was because he said Freshfields basically had solved a deadlock between the Port Authority, the tenants of the old buildings, and enabled the regeneration of this really historic area of Hamburg that had been threatened with decay. And the way the firm had mediated, negotiated, come up with a solution that made everybody happy and delivered the solution, they basically saved Hamburg. But was that in their innovation, submission? No. And what we feel, or what we can see, is that private practice lawyers tend to be very much more concerned with the legal input. For them, that's what legal innovation is about. Whereas for the client, it's all about the commercial output. And for us, sitting as commentators, we say, well, it's about the legal innovation and the commercial output. You can't have one without the other. That is innovation. And that's what we've been trying to do, is bring that together. And I guess one of the things we see about collaboration is we want to see private practice lawyers just have more of that sense of how important the work is. What is the value of the work that they are doing for their clients, really, in real terms?
I'm based in Europe, and I've always been fascinated by RSG Consulting because you guys always seem to be in the Financial Times all the time. Can you just give us some background about some of the things you do?
Well, probably part of the reason that we're in the FT a lot, I suppose, I helped set up the law and business page in the FT about 10 years ago when I set the company up. And I'm used to be the editor and publishing director at Chambers and Partners, the big publishers of legal guides. And so when I left there, the FT said, would I come and write legal features for them, which I did. And then about 5 years ago, we set up a joint venture between the FT and RSG to produce this report on innovative lawyers. And so we've been doing that now for the last 4 or 5 years, and we're about to bring it out to the States, which we're hoping is going to thrill the firms. But again, talking about the difference between the UK and the US, we've developed a definition of innovation in Europe. We deal with the UK and continental Europe. I think that definition of what is innovation in legal service in the US is going to be quite different.
Fascinating. And you've done these conferences before at Georgetown, or is this your first?
No, this is my second.
Your second
I came
conference?
a couple of years
from
ago.
2 years ago when they had the first manifestation before the famous meltdown.
Yes,
Okay, fine.
that's right.
Okay. Reena, thank you very much, and we'll see more of you during the conference.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.